Okay, we should now be live. There's sometimes a few seconds delay from pressing the live button and actually ending up live, but hopefully we are now. We should be anyway. So, first of all, without any further ado, we're going to introduce John Burke. Known John for years and years and years. He's a great karateka, the man in.
Well, I'm still here. I don't know whether Russell's coming back any minute. But I can't see any questions.
Okay, hold on. Something went wrong my end. Hopefully I'm back. Am I back?
Right. Are you there?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Everything just cut off. I didn't touch anything. I'm not technical. But anyway, so we should be live still. Yes, we are. Okay, so John Burke, I was in the thing. Hopefully it came out there. He's the guy to go to. Anything you want to know about Kata, anything as regards to Bunkai, Oyo, whatever it is, how it can be used properly. John's the man. Known him for years and years and years. Welcome, John.
Hello, Russell. Very nice to see you. Lovely to see you. And I'm really, really sorry that this situation has got us talking like this instead of you were supposed to be at my dojo a couple of weeks ago.
Exactly. That would have been amazing. But
miss you.
Yeah. We were so looking forward to the trip. I tell you, I'm so looking forward to the trip and seeing your new place and catching up. But weird times we're living in. Weird times.
Aren't they just?
Hello, Robert. Good to see you here as well. Robert's come up on the thing. Right, I'm going to go straight into some questions for you, John. There's loads of them that have already been sent in. So I'm going to start with the difficult ones first, just to get your juices flowing, as they say.
Why do we get riled up here, am I?
Yeah, I want to get you all riled up. Why do we practice kata?
For whatever reason you want to. So the usual answer there is that most people practice it to get a grade, don't they? I mean, most people practice kata because they have to, because it's part of their syllabus and because they've been told they've got to practice kata. But I think that some of us still practice kata, even though we don't need any more grades, because we enjoy it, because it's good solo training. I mean, how many people in this current situation are training at home, training on their own? They've got a little bit of space, they're out in the garden, and the whole world's making up kata now. They're all out there doing some shadow boxing, and if they're performing the same bit of shadow boxing again and again, they're basically doing a kata anyway. So yeah, it was lovely to see the jiu-jitsu guys posting that when you've got to do some solo training, they should do this move and that move, and they're doing a few moves there on their own, and they're doing a kata.
Yeah, I saw that. That was some BJJ guys doing a kata. They were saying we're now doing a jiu-jitsu kata. So, you know, and not so long back, I can remember a lot of BJJ guys saying kata was a waste of time.
Yeah.
Times change.
I get it. I get why they would say that. But if we haven't got a memory aid, I mean, nowadays, like you said on the post last week, you could just go to YouTube and look up any move you want to look up. But before that was possible, and those of us with a liking for the history of our art, we want to try and relive some of the moves of the past. So how else were we supposed to encode and remember them if it wasn't through physically doing them? If you're not going to write them down or draw every single move, then you've got to have a physical aide de memoire, don't you?
Absolutely. And it's the only way during those times to pass that information along from teacher to student and so on and so forth.
You said it last week.
Okay. There's a load of questions, so I'm just going to bounce around because I know you know the answer to all of them, and some of them makes for some interesting discussion, right? And you know the answer, right?
I know nothing.
Okay, so easy one first. What's your favourite kata before we get into the meat and potatoes?
For performance or for application?
Just says your favourite.
So weird story, but going back a few years, I was being examined by your good friend, Mr. Anthony Blades, and he set me a kata that I had to learn and perform for the exam. And naturally, bearing in mind it was an exam, I hated it. It was a light and airy kata, and there's nothing about me that's light and airy. I'm a big, heavy lad. And so I would much prefer a big, strong-looking kata that would suit my physique. And I didn't have that. What I had was a balletic, lovely kata that would suit some people down to the ground, but it doesn't suit me. So anyway, I went through my performance, and it was, as you can imagine, not the best performance on the planet. And then he says to me, do it again. So you do it again. And by this time, I've done some basics. I've done the kata a couple of times. I'm knackered. And so we go through it again. And then he says, all right. He says, show me Kankudai. So I go through Kankudai. And then every time I finish it, he goes, do it again. So I do Kankudai again. I'm thinking this has got to be the last time. It's not. Do it again. So I'm in a puddle now. Literally, there's a puddle of sweat on the floor. And then he says, right, shut your eyes. And when I ask you the next question, you will reply as immediately as possible with the first thing that comes into your head. And then he said, favorite kata? And I said, Maikyo. And I've got no idea why I said it. But I'm a great believer that if something comes out in the instant like that, it's probably true somewhere deep down. So while I might have said Teki, I might have said Sochin, they kind of suit Big Me. Apparently it's Maikyo, or it was on that day.
Okay.
Who knows?
You know me and Kata, I can't even remember what it looks like. So loads more questions for you. Right. I'm going to do I'm going to get towards the meat and potatoes now of kata and what they're really about. Okay, so this could be a really lengthy answer. So we might break it up because I know it's a lengthy answer when I ask the question. So these are questions that have already come in. How do you understand a kata move, stroke, break it down?
Good question. There's not going to be one right answer, is there? But the first thing, I mean, we're talking about application, aren't we? We're not talking about performing the move, but you might.
No, we're talking about the actual application.
Okay, so how do you understand it? First thing, it's got to be done at the right distance, because if it's not necessary, then why have you got to do it at all? You know, the obvious thing here is when you see those guys who are starting from 8 foot away and they've got to do a step towards you with a straight punch, and then you're going to do a step towards them to block something, where if you stood still, you wouldn't have to do anything because they weren't going to reach you. So first thing then about how you understand a move is it's got to have the right proximity. If it hasn't got the right proximity, it's not necessary. If it's not necessary, it wouldn't be encoded in karate kata, and by which we can take all the things that come out of karate as being karate kata as well. So first thing, the right distance, and then do the move on them.
Yeah. Let's see if it works.
Well, that's where you start, isn't it? You start by being at the right distance and doing the move on them. So if everything's got layers, and the first layer is every move hits someone, then you've got to be at the right distance to hit them, and it's got to be necessary, which means they've got to be attacking you with at least a situation that requires that response, and then you do the move on them.
Yeah. I mean, to understand how to break down a move, you've got to first of all understand the shape, if you like, as well. You've got to understand that looks can be deceiving as well. I always say to people that just because the still picture that you've got has got something like this doesn't mean necessarily that you're putting your arm up in that way to block. Just because you're doing something like this doesn't mean that that end of that technique is the technique, because there's a lot going on before you get to the end of that technique. Just like if you saw a still photo at the end of a hook, you wouldn't say you're punching somebody over here with a hook punch, because they've already been hit over here. There's a lot going on. So it's understanding all of those things as well when you're breaking stuff down, because too many times people look at the end of the technique, the end of the move on the kata, and go, what's that for? You go, well, you missed 99% of it.
Yeah. So what was it you told me? Between 50 to 90% of the way through the move is where the action happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, couldn't agree.
If it's past that, there's very little left to give, and it's before that you probably haven't built up enough momentum to do a job. So 50 to 90% of the way through is where the action happens.
Yeah. Now, there's somebody else saying they've read that if blocks are not blocks in a kata, what are they then?
Right. So that's the joy, isn't it? That's the experience, is finding out what they are. So first off, we know that block doesn't mean block, don't we? Because the Japanese word uki does not mean block. And if you do Aikido or you do Judo, then you already understand that. But here we are in the karate world where we've misinterpreted the word uki to mean block. And for some reason, it's stuck. Uki comes from receive. So we are receiving. Now, do you want to receive someone with prejudice or receive them gently? That's a choice. We can vary the intensity of what we're doing. So we could say all blocks are strikes, but is there a point in striking someone gently? Well, if I want to lead them in a particular way, then I might. But if I want to do some damage, then I need to receive them hard, or receive something vulnerable in a way that part of their body is not made to take. So block isn't a block. Block means receive. If it receives, then it receives something. And more or less all the time, we're going to be using two hands to do that reception, aren't we? So then you've got which hand's doing what. So if I've got two hands up, one of them's got hold of something, and one of them's hitting something, or leading something, or pulling something. And then it's a case of what have they got? So what's the first thing that an attacker offers us? It's usually their arm, isn't it? Whether that's a push, a grab, they've gone to hit you straight off. There's an arm coming at you. And more or less always we're going to be dealing with that arm before we then go straight to work on the intention behind that arm. If we could get
it's like Whip just said on the comments, where the hands cross is where the action's happening.
Hi Whip, how you doing?
So, yeah, I mean, can't argue with that. I've said before on a couple of other webinars a few ago, myself and Whip were going through a load of stuff down at my old gym, and I was doing it from the Kata Bunkai side, and Whip was looking at the moves from an Aikido side, and we ended up just doing the same stuff. It was a great time, great few hours. Whip just said, "Hey up, Johnny boy." Just come off on here. So yes, I mean, like we've just mentioned, where the hands cross and things like that. When something's crossing, you bet your bottom dollar that something's happening. Things like this, there's all sorts of stuff going on. I don't look at things like this as blocks and stuff like that at all, ever, because I'm not fast enough to block stuff, right? So I always say I'm not good enough to block it. So it's got to be something else. Strangles, chokes, things like that works quite well, just to get people thinking. So then the same guy is asking a different question, because they've gone on, if blocks are not blocks, what are they? So then if they're not blocks, does that mean that punches in kata are not punches?
Sometimes. So just the other day there on my channel, I put up a clip of exactly that. I'm doing the Morote Urazuki from Heian Godan, and I'm not using it as a punch at all. It's a thrust for sure. You thrust your arm up in the air, but the Japanese don't have a word for punch. If they're going to say punch, they use a loan word. So the term zuki or tsuki, because I'm English, I'm going to say it wrong, aren't I? It means thrust. So it just means thrust your arm, or thrust your body, or thrust. So you're thrusting. Now, what part of you makes contact with the other person ain't necessarily those, is it? I mean, it might be, but it might be that, or it might be that, or it might be that, or it might be that. It can be any part that's actually going to make contact with the guy. And then where on him does it make contact? And of course, it could be a girl, but let's stick to the easy pronouns. So the punch could be a punch. Sometimes a punch is a punch. You've got to say that.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's a thrust. It might be an ascending thrust. And if it's an ascending thrust, it might well be making contact with something on the way, and it might not be your knuckles that are doing the job. So we don't automatically think that it's that. Does that mean that you can punch someone as an application? Yep, absolutely. Of course you can.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing wrong with giving somebody a good punch. Now, before we carry on with some of those questions that have already come in, I just want to make sure that Tom, I won't use your last name, Tom, because just in case people don't want to have the last name shouted out. But Tom's just asked how to use pressure point strikes in the katas. We normally do. So I'm assuming you already know about some point stuff there then, Tom. So, well, how would you use pressure point strikes in any move?
Yeah. So if you're already using them, I'd just say carry on.
Yeah. The pressure point stuff is there. If you're doing a move, whatever the move is, then the points are there for you. So if you understand the points and you're doing a move, if it looks like a move from a kata, then it is.
Yeah.
If not, you're just doing a move. And if you don't know the kata, then you can just say, I just did that. And if you do know the kata, then you can say, I did that, and it's from there.
Right. But it's a huge subject, isn't it?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you understand pressure points, then they are there in every single move that you're doing.
Yeah. Make sure it lands on a good one.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you're doing kata bunkai, jiu-jitsu, judo, boxing, kickboxing, BJJ, whatever you want. If you understand the body and you understand pressure points, they're there in every single move that you do.
Use them to best effect.
So, if you want to make what you're doing more effective, you add the points in. But before you add the points in, you've got to add all the players in, which is what you're learning as well when you're doing bunkai the way John teaches it. Because John doesn't teach crap, silly block, kick, punch, bunkai. It's proper fighting, if you want to call it that. It's proper body mechanics, right? And it's proper alignment of the structure, of your skeletal structure, of your muscles, your tendons, your bones, your ligaments, everything all aligned properly. So you've got the correction of your body, weight, strength, dynamics, physics, mechanics in every move that you're doing, which is another reason why if you truly understand kata, you can do proper kata bunkai. Sorry, John, I went off on one, but
well, if anyone's going to talk about pressure points, it should be you, eh?
Get out of here. So back to some more stuff then. Why do we have stances?
Direction and application of weight in motion.
That's a nice little explanation.
I might have answered that before somewhere,
Yeah, I think you've been asked that question once or twice.
So you said last week about it being a momentary thing, and you're not standing around in that stance. You're moving through it in order to do something. So what is a stance? A stance is you throwing your weight, in a direction to cause something to happen. So let's use examples, because otherwise people get lost in the grand theory of things. You're going to step out to your left in the first move, in the first kata that most people learn, and you're going to make a down block. And we already know it doesn't mean block, but I'm going to step out to my left and make a front stance. Why? So why would I do it? Because there's someone right in front of me, and I want to put them down over there. And so when I throw my person over there and I'm moving them in that direction, there's a good chance that I'm going to make something that looks like a front stance. So if I'm not trying to achieve a front stance, I might not actually push far enough. But if I've got it that I'm going to try for that length, that distance, that push in that direction, then I'm going to have a lot more success than if I don't. Which is just like your thing about the pressure points. If you don't aim for them, you could hit anything. But if you aim for that specific target, and even if you don't quite get it, you'll still get a better result than if you didn't know it was there in the first place.
Exactly. Couldn't have put it better myself. And Robert's asking, can you see waveform fitting in? Again, in every single move that we do. I just want to clarify this for people who may not know. We show waveforms as strikes, first of all, so people understand the waveform generates more power for you. And when we double or treble the impact for people with their strikes, punches, knees, kicks, elbows, slaps, whatever, when you get a doubling or a trebling of your power, of your impact with less effort, you begin to understand that the waveform movement is quite a handy thing to have. But people often forget or don't want to move on. They think it's just hitting something. It's whole body movement. So you would do it in every move that you do. When you do Gaidan Brai at the start of that very first kata that John just spoke about, when you do that, if you just move your arms, you're not going to move that guy around. John's a big guy. He's about 6'2", 6'3", maybe. And I don't know, 6'2". Let's say a live 14.5 stone. Right? or maybe a little bit more. Right? But you're not going to grab him and move him just by using your arms and doing the kata that way. You've got to put that whole body movement in, get that whole waveform going, and then you will move him. And that's why smaller people can move bigger people if they've got correct technique and they've got waveform. Yeah. And again, I keep saying to people, that waveform is in everything that you do. Everything. And the difference it makes when you just put it into that first move, in that very first kata. Every karate class in the world normally starts off with, if you're not doing that kata, in the basics, it's left side forward, go down Brai. And you see everybody just step and do that, and there's no movement to it. You've got to have all of this waveform, guys, to get proper good movement. They do it, John's, but I'm just saying, most of the places you go to, they don't. So some other quick questions that have come in. You'll like this one. Why do we have Hikite then?
Hikaru, to pull, te, hand. It's a pulling hand. Therefore, it's a hand that pulls. What are you pulling? Something. Grab your guy's arm, head, whatever, but you're pulling something. So sometimes, you get the myths that we like to dispel, and you get the people who say, well, when you pull one hand back, it makes the other one go faster. But it doesn't make that hand go faster, but what it does do is pull the other person onto it faster. So in a way, even the nonsense that people say is right after a fashion. Yeah. Because it is making a faster effect, but only if you know that you're going to be pulling something with the Hikite hands.
Rather than just putting it there for the aesthetics. But you see, again, I think what we need to also say here is that when you ask a question to somebody like John, he gives you the correct translation of that Japanese terminology, right? So with Hikite, for example, everybody in martial arts calls it their withdrawing hand. That's what they call it. So they say Hikite, oh, that means your withdrawing hand. No, right? It's not. So once you and you know, Gaidan Brai means low down block, low section block. No, it doesn't. Right. And when you hear this wrong translation and it's spread out, it gives you immediately the wrong idea as to what that move actually could mean.
Yeah. Yeah. And that changes everyone's perception of what the kata contains and what their moves contain, and
Exactly.
it stifles, which is one of the reasons why I do still use Japanese terminology. Because if you say something's a low block, then that's all it can ever be. It's a low block. But if you say it's
that leads me nicely onto another question. The same guy is asking, why would you use Japanese in class?
There you go. That's why. Yeah. Because I can make Gidan Barai, and Gidan Barai can be a number of things as long as they contain a low-level sweep.
Yeah.
But low block is one thing. It's a block going down low. But Gidan Barai, I can use that to throw. I can use that to strike. I can use that to knock someone over. I can do it when someone's grabbed me from behind. I can do it when someone's approached from the front. Gidan Barai is limitless. We teach 100 applications to Gidan Barai.
Yeah, yeah. And this is something that that gets to people who've got a very strong traditional background but haven't gone deep in their knowledge. They may have done many, many years of training, but it's a shallow, superficial understanding. But you've got somebody like John, who's got many, many years of training, but he's gone deep in the understanding. So to John, Gaidan Barai, low section block, like he's just saying, means 100 things minimum, right? But to a lot of very high level karateka that I know, it means low section block. Nothing else.
Sad, isn't it?
And it's, yeah, it is. It's sad. And you know, I would hate to have spent all my time and only have one reason for a move, and that reason doesn't work.
Well, that's the point. It's okay to only have one reason if it's a good one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but if it doesn't work, it's not so nice, you know. And I think from my own experience, when I've explained these sort of things to people, they've taken one of two roads. One is, I need to increase the depth of my knowledge, and the other one is, oh crap, I've wasted all this time and I don't know anything. I'm going to stay in mine. I'm going to stay being a big fish in my little pond. I don't want to know. Leave me alone. And it tends to go that. I'm sure you've probably had the same sort of reactions, John. But there you go. So another question. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No. That's where you found me all those years ago. Where
yes.
And it was you that said they're not wasted. The years that got you to where you are, they're not wasted. No. They got you to where you are. Because if you hadn't had those years, then you wouldn't be in a position to be investigating the grand potential of the art at later stages. So don't look on them as a waste. Then nothing's wasted. It's just time spent getting you to where you had to be to then move on to where you want to go next.
Exactly.
And that's what we're about, isn't it? Going where we've got to go next.
Exactly. And sometimes you just need to have done something, whatever it is, to be in that particular place at that particular time where you're ready to actually absorb the information and kick off with it. You know, so many people, you know, like I said, they stumble over the truth, they pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and carry on walking as if nothing happened.
Some of us
Tony, we'll answer your question in a minute. I just got a couple more from over here, then I will ask your question.
You've got a queue going on there, have you?
Yeah. So saying, what about other styles? How can you understand those, Kata, when you don't even do them?
He says I don't do
them.
So a move is a move, isn't it? And you were saying last week that you don't even do kata anymore, and I do, but I don't. You know, this is a big argument that goes on when people, if someone comes to the dojo and they want the quick answer and they say, what style do you do? I'll say Shotokan. Because if you're the type of person who needs me to label a style, then you probably need that quick answer as well. But the truth of it is, it's just karate. So how do I know what moves in Shitoryu styles are for? Because they're moves and they're in karate. And what about the Tang Sudo people that so generously host me out in the Netherlands? How can we do this? Because Tang Sudo comes out of karate. Kyokushinkai know some wonderful people in Kyokushinkai in Northern Europe, and you know, I don't practice Kyokushinkai. How do I know they're kata? Well, but I did do Kyokushinkai for a short period back in the day, so I've got some residual memory there. But the moves are the moves. They're in kata, and just because I might not know how to perform sanseru doesn't mean that I couldn't identify that when you do this in sanseru, it probably does the same thing as when you do it in hangetsu or heian nidan. You know, it's the same move.
A move's a move. Once you understand how the body works, and you've got some principles of understanding how to break down a kata, then you can look at any move and you can make it work. And it's like Whip just said, he gets asked the same in Aikido, what type of Aikido do you do? And he just says, Aikido. Yeah. You should say really good Aikido as well, Whip, by the way. Right. Completely different to the Aikido that everybody else is doing, Aikido. Right. So Tony's, all right, Tony, we'll ask for that. Don't worry. All right. He goes, oh, his mate bought your DVD and he does Kyokushin.
Nice.
Well done. So buy the rest of them then. Right. Everybody should be buying John's DVDs. Bunkai.co.uk. People should get on there and buy his stuff. It's on his T-shirt. Look, get up there. So Tony's saying, could you make a karate school based on the 10 or so most common attacks? Would that still be a karate school? Ooh, don't start, Mrs. Titter. There you go. Could you make a karate school based on? Could you make a karate school based on the 10 or so most common attacks? If you want.
Yeah.
Would it still be a karate school? If you do karate? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was easy, Tony. Right. Yeah. Yeah, if you want.
No, I get the point of the question, though.
Yeah.
You know, it's that old thing about at what point do you stop calling it karate? And for some people, that's really early on. But what else am I going to call it?
Yeah.
Well,
this is the thing. You see,
we could make up a new name, but it's still karate.
Yeah. You see, you could argue that every move in every kata, you could interpret that as a defense against one or all of the top 10 most common attacks.
Yep.
Because John, myself, don't know anybody else, but I know John can, and Whip, by the way, they can show you those moves against those top 10 attacks and loads more. So you could argue you only need to learn a few moves or one move. Because if you truly understood Geidan Brai, right? If you truly understood Geidan Brai, you could use that for all of the top 10 attacks. So you could narrow it down to say, my karate school only consists of low section block.
You could.
You wouldn't. It'd get boring. But if you truly understood movement and you truly understood players and points and all the principles that John teaches out there, you could, if you wanted to, just use Geidan Brai and nothing else.
Yeah.
Really simple.
Would it still be karate? Yep.
Yeah.
If it's dressed up and it's using the terminology, the outfits, the respect, the mannerisms of karate, then it's karate.
Yeah. And don't forget that the karate that everybody practices ain't that old.
Indeed.
You know, people I hear still to this day, people saying Taekwondo is hundreds of years old. It's not.
No.
Right? I think it was 1954, I think. But there you go.
Yeah. The uniform and everything in karate only came about. It's heading for 100 years now, isn't it? We're nearly there.
Yeah, I think is it 1931?
Well, by the time it got ratified, but they were playing about with it before then.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it's t-shirt and shorts job, mate.
Yeah. Yeah, which leads me on to another question in a bit. But I like that. Whip's go-to is a quick left dummy kick to the nuts as he steps in with a fast left hook as their chin dips. There you go. Can't argue with that one.
John, that's Gidam Brai, that is.
Yeah, that's just the opening part of Gidam Brai. See, everything's Gidam Brai. There you go. Here's another question for you, Mr. Know-It-All. How do you know your bunkai is correct?
If it works, it's correct, right?
There you go. Simple as.
But I get the question, though. So the answer's glib because I'm a bit like that. And people either like that or they don't. It's up to them. But the question is valid. How do you know it's correct? Well, if it walks like a duck and it looks like a duck, it's probably a duck. So how do we know it's correct? Because it works. And the number of things we've tried that didn't work, that we eliminated from the equation, leave us with, as Sherlock Holmes would say, the obvious.
Indeed. Now, see, here's the thing, you see. Right? What used to bug me, it doesn't bug me anymore, but it used to bug me years ago, was that we would do something like, just going back to Waveforms for a minute, somebody would come in, let's say a Shotokan guy, 15, 20-year Shotokan guy, punches at X power. Within an hour, we got them doing double X or triple X power. Then they stand there and question what we're doing. I go, hold on a minute. You've been training 20 years and you hit that hard. Yeah. You've been training 1 hour and you've doubled the power and you're questioning me and saying, is this right or wrong?
Yeah.
What the, you should be questioning the last 20 years. So when it comes to knowing if your bunkai is correct, common sense is the first thing. Can you do it? Does it feel right for you? Because again, what works for John maybe, and what maybe works for me, may not work for this guy, that guy, and what works for them may not work right for me, because there's lots of applications of that same move. John may use, let's just say, Gidam Brai in one way, and for me it doesn't gel. I might use that same move, but in a different way. But even though our bunkai is different, it's still the same move, and it's still correct for each of us. But the other move is incorrect for each of us, because we don't like using it that way. So when we say, how do we know it's correct if we can use it, and it's incorrect if we can't. But the caveat to that is that what's incorrect for me may well be correct for you. So this is what opens up a whole new world for people once they understand movement and they understand bunkai the way John teaches it. Because you're not stuck with one move equals one application. You're stuck with one move equals as many applications as you can think of.
So it's either a great limiter, isn't it? You either go, well, there's no real applications, I might as well just give up on looking for applications. Or you go, thank goodness for that. The world is free. I can use it however I see fit.
Yeah.
And you're either going to be closed off and limited in your thinking, or you're opened up and you can have however you want it, as long as it fits your criteria. So the way I'd use it probably isn't going to win me any medals in sport. I'm not going to get any big trophies from the way I use my techniques from Kata. In fact, I'd say to people who are interested in winning trophies, don't do the things that I show you for applications. it's not going to win you any more trophies. So you know, but if you're interested in using it, you're interested in the possibilities of what you can use it for, then whether it's the same way that insert historical personality here would have used it, we don't know. We don't know. And if it was right for them, that doesn't mean it was the way it was originally prior to them anyway.
Exactly.
There are historical references to back up a lot of the things that we do. Not everything, but a lot of the things.
Yeah.
So have I got a picture of Funakoshi using Gidambarai as an armbar? Yes, I have. So don't tell me that the Hikite just goes back to the hip, because I got a picture of Funakoshi grabbing a guy's wrists and using the down fist against the back of his elbow. It's right there for everyone to see.
Well, I've seen medieval texts using whipped Kota Gaesh and saying this is what you'd use on the battlefield as a dagger defense. Medieval texts. So, and it's a different way of doing Kota Gaesh to the way most people do it. But, we're not going to argue about the intricacies of it, but there you go. If a medieval text is saying you do this wrist turn throw, if you want to translate it badly, you do this wrist turn throw as your real defense on the battlefield when your life's in danger, truly in danger, and this is what we use, this is what's proven to work, then I'm pretty much going to go with what they say, because they're doing it for real against somebody's trying to kill them. This is not a fancy move in the gym where it works on everybody because everybody's compliant. It's the way Whip does it, the way we do it, and it's also the way you do it, I know, John. But it's like it's very different to the way most people do it. Dave's asked a good question. I won't do Dave S6. I don't know, that's not your real last name, but Dave S688. The connection to past masters through Kata is fascinating, but with respect, which also always means without. I can't help feel learning Kata is a bit like learning Latin instead of Spanish. A real language is less efficient. Agree?
No, because I think Latin has a purpose.
Yeah.
By understanding Latin, I can take apart words that come from many different languages and cultures and see the root of what their meaning is.
Yeah.
So I love Latin. And does anyone speak Latin now? Nope. They don't even use it in church anymore. But that doesn't mean that it's absolutely redundant, because it's the root. So, but look, I'm not trying to convince anyone to practice Kata if they don't want to practice Kata. So if it doesn't fit for you, don't do it. But if you can see a value in it, if you can understand that these root movements, and that's all they are, is snapshots. They're not the whole story. It's supposed to be a method of remembering something you've already learned. So if you can use it that way, cool. Keep using Kata, and understand your bit of Aikido that you observe someone doing, and your bit of Judo that you see someone doing, because they share body movements all over. It's just different methods of teaching.
I mean, again, with that Latin thing, just a little side story. Years ago, when I had my school in Cyprus, you came there, John, a few times. We had some students from different East European countries. And one day somebody said something in their language, and then somebody else said, I understood that, and replied in their language, and so on. So, and in the end, we had 6 people from 6 different countries who could understand everybody else, getting 80% of what was being said, because the root they understood. They understood the root of where it came from. So that Latin root is a good, once you understand the root of stuff, the root of movement, I'll say, the root of body mechanics, then things start to work for you.
Yeah.
And John's now gone back to his Latin class. Well done, John. Right. You did well there. Okay, Simo's asking, are you aware of a full contact knockdown style of karate, Enshin karate, founded by Joko, I'm going to really annoy you with this name, Ninomiya, ex-Kyokushin Ashihara fighter. All the katas replicate the sabaki application of the fighting technique.
Yep. Yeah, I'm aware of it.
Right. Yeah. I'm not. I'm sorry. I'm not aware of most things.
Just you know, every style's got its benefits, and Enshin, you know, they like to get in the ring. You've seen some of the Dado stuff, haven't you, Russell?
Oh yeah.
The head guards on and just go for it while wearing karate gis.
So it's the same as Dado Juko, is it?
Well, it's heading that way. Yeah.
Oh right. I love that. Then.
But it comes out of Kyokushinkai. So you know, are you used to taking a knock and getting stuck in? Yeah. There's no issue with any of those guys who get in the ring and fight, is there? It's just a case of how is that relevant to most people's kata? A hit can be a hit. You're not likely to get many locks on while you're scrapping one-on-one in a ring with a referee there awarding points for how many times you hit or knock someone down. There's a lot of moves which are restraint or, you know, take advantage of someone's not being aware of what you're going to do. You know, there's not many people entering those rings where someone starts out putting them in a bear hug.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things. The thing I like about that, though, that to me makes it more fun, if not or better than MMA, is the fact that you've got something to grab hold of as well.
Yeah.
They've got a gi on, you've got something to grab, so you've got more realistic, if you like, more realistic than an MMA match because you've got something to grab hold of. Yeah, still a sport and a horrendously difficult and exciting sport. I love to see it. That Daido Juko stuff, I think it's brilliant. But the fact that you can grab hold of somebody, slam them down, and I think that's the one where they do a foot. If they stomp with the foot close to your head, it's classified as the end of the fight. It would have been. Yeah. I think it's brilliant. I think someone saying breaks away from traditional styles of kata. Well, it breaks away from traditional all sorts. Right. But then again, what's traditional?
Well, this is a problem, isn't it?
See, because to my mind, traditional is right back in the day when it was a proper fight, when you learned how to really use it properly instead of doing musical forms and stuff like that and calling it, you know. Anyway, I'll get off where I'm going. So, which also brings on to another question that's come in for. Yeah, if Bunkai is all fighting and self-defense and blah 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 and all that, why not just do MMA?
You could. Some people do. Some of us like the atmosphere and respect and the discipline of a karate class. So not everyone wants to be a fighter, do they? But MMA is a perfectly valid exploration of body movement. Where I mean, every club's different, and at some clubs, you know, I dare say there are MMA people exploring joint locks and you know, things that might be a bit more subtle than the cage stuff. But why might we still find validity in practice of kata and you know, wearing the traditional uniform, such as it is tradition, and exploring things from that perspective, because I also get to work really gently with some people, and I'm not sure if we got in the cage we could afford to be gentle with each other. For some of us, it's academic. We're just looking at karate because we enjoy doing it and because we enjoy looking at the applications. Some of us are thinking, I would never use that. So like you were saying earlier about that move might not work for me. Do you know, it might not. And I might never grab someone's finger in the middle of a fight, but it might be exactly what someone down the line needs. and I should understand it if I'm the teacher. Otherwise, I can't teach it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to explore all sorts of avenues for people who are completely gentle and never want to hit anyone, through to people who just want to learn to slip and roll, through to people who want to shoot and sprawl. We can do all sorts. And the fact that we'll do it wearing a gi shouldn't take away from that. No. So why not just do MMA? You can if you like. Go on then.
Yeah, if you enjoy it. As long as you're doing martial arts, I don't care what style you're doing. You're a good egg in my book. That's all I say. Hey, Rich just saying. Sorry, John.
We can't talk if you do MMA.
Exactly. This is what's starting to happen. I've found with them. I'm just going to say it out. So a lot of the MMA lot now have got the same sort of attitude that a lot of the traditional lot had years ago. We're better than them. We're all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, if you don't do my style, you can't talk. Get over yourself.
Play those games. So, Whip's just saying, all the modern systems derive techniques from traditional arts, life and death, not points. Yeah, exactly right. Couldn't agree more, Whip. But here's the thing. When it's derived from something else, often you don't get an actual facsimile of it. You get a very poor copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. And this is where things get misunderstood, watered down, not applied correctly, mistranslated, and so on and so forth. So it's a bit like Chinese whispers, we always say. You do the Chinese whispers, and all of a sudden, within a few seconds of Chinese whispers, let's say a few years of martial arts, all of a sudden it's lost. Same with boxing. You go back in boxing, old school pugilism, they had throws, locks, takedowns, all sorts. It was all there, but it's all gone. Simo, you're right. Everything's got a benefit if you've got an open mind. Exactly. And it's like Big Paul was saying the other week. He looks at stuff. He listens to people, even if it's a load of old cobblers at the time. He listens, never says anything, tries it. If it works, he uses it. If it doesn't work, he don't bother with it. So, that's it. Simple as.
Big Paul left a fist imprint on my chest. from training heavy hands up at your gaff, and I could see in the week following, I could see the fingers from his fist on my chest. I was like, what? Why have I got stripes here? It was Paul Butlin's fist.
Right, through the pads, them white pads.
Just from doing landing.
Oh, doing the doing the heavy hand, yeah.
And as gentle a man as he is, that was heavy.
Yeah. Paul's a big dude, big strong old boy. Tony's asking, can you explain the subtle difference between Oyo and Bunkai? Which I've got another question exactly the same over here as well, Tony.
Yeah, it's not really subtle. So it's another misuse of Japanese, and I continue the horrible truth of it. I continue to use the term Bunkai just because if you go around talking about Oyo, lots of people don't know what you're talking about. So people tend to understand the term Bunkai and they take it to mean application, and it doesn't really. There are two characters to Bunkai. One means to pull apart, and the other one means to look at. There they are.
Right.
Two characters. So to pull apart and to look at, which when you put them together, it means analysis. So Bunkai means analysis, and it still fits because that's exactly what I do, is analyze. We analyze the moves. Oyo, made up of two characters. The first one means use, and the second one means apply. So Oyo is perhaps a better term for applications. But in general, up and down the country, internationally, using the word Oyo, no one knows what you're talking about. Obviously, there's exceptions. Use the term Bunkai. I can go into Korean schools and they understand when you say Kata and Bunkai, even though those aren't Korean words. They still understand what you mean when you say them.
I think it's going to be another example of words gradually changing their meaning over time into what colloquially is known as rather than its actual meaning.
Yeah.
I think Bunkai is going to become the generic term for breaking down and showing what the moves in kata or patterns forms are actually for.
Yeah.
So, Dave's come in with a great question. How many parallels have you found between pugilism and karate, and examples? Well, for me, hundreds, right? It's just the parallel is you might as well say they're the same. And I need to explain that because it sounds like, hold on, how can boxing be the same as karate? Right. Let me explain something. First of all, sorry, John, I'll just go into this one. Right. You're in modern day karate, your Kion, your Kata, and your Kumite are completely different. Right? You go to any Shotokan, not any, but you go to almost all Shotokan schools, for example. I'll pick on Shotokan because that's my background as well. Kion, Kata, Kumite, all different. They don't resemble each other. You go to boxing, they're all the same. Your basic moves is the same as your shadows. It's the same as your sparring. It's the same as your fighting. Proper karate, they're all the same. If you take an individual move from a kata and you apply it, that application of that individual move will be exactly the same as the kata, but not exactly. There's always a little subtle difference, the same as shadows, but it will be the same as the move that you've just done in the kata. It's the same as the move you just done in the fight. So that if you practice it as a shadow on its own, that means the shadow, the sparring, are the same. And that's how John does his karate. Just speaking for you there, John. But when you're breaking it down, the kata down properly, it is the same. Right? So to me, the pugilism, the old style pugilism, I know that's not exactly what you're looking for, Dave. I'll come on to it. But to me, they're all the same when you do it right, which John does. But we all know that most people aren't doing it that way. Right? Now, pugilism, just think of anything, right? Think of any move in pugilism. Look at some of the old school photos of years back where they're here and here, and they're standing, their fist positioning, their guard positioning. You might as well say, oh, it looks like karate. So there's lots of things where you can look at it and go, that looks like karate. That you look at the old photos of the old karate masters from back in the day, they're not in long, deep stances. They're more stood up, more fighting type look about it than a long, deep stance that you couldn't move from. So those some very simple parallels there. I don't know about you, John, but that's the sort of thing I look at.
Yep. The sportswear that boxers wear has changed. It's evolved. The things that karate people wear has changed. It's evolved. But back in the day, we were all in shorts and t-shirt, lying in the sand, and let's have it.
And pugilism was bare knuckle. And, so don't forget that in boxing today, you've got wraps on, you've got your gloves on, you can throw an incorrect punch all your life and get away with it because you're covered. You're not damaging your hands. You throw an incorrect punch in pugilism, you know all about it the first time you throw it. You know all about it. And to me, that's why I like the old school pugilism, because it teaches you to punch correctly. It teaches you to make sure that you understand the anatomy of your fist, of your arm, of your wrist, of your shoulders, how the structure should be so that you don't damage yourself when you punch.
Just like Paul was saying last week.
Yeah.
Putting your hip behind it. Don't we punch the same way? Oh no, because a karate man starts down here and a boxer starts up here. Well, Karate Man doesn't start down there unless he's grabbed something and pulled it down.
Yeah, exactly. You have to get over these hurdles all the time. You know, but Paul was saying that, you know, we specialize in breaking stuff down. So when John was there, Paul was there, we're training together. It's breaking stuff down into the small constituent parts that makes it work. You know, as Tony just said, it's all empty hand, old school. Yeah. That's it. I've got a couple more questions. Are you okay with time for a couple more quick questions, John? Because we've already hit the hour. Are you okay for? Yeah. Okay.
If you're okay, I'm okay.
Okay. Okay. You might like this one. My sensei. Oh, you're going to like this one. My sensei is with the KUGB, and we do our Bunkai against karate attacks and defenses in the sequence of the kata as it should be done. So why do you think you're right and we're wrong?
Okay.
All I can say to that is, if it's who I think it is, stop. You know what I mean?
Well, so there's nothing wrong with doing applications against karate type attacks if that's what you want to do, and you're going to do it up on stage and show it off for people. But it's not likely to happen. So if you're going to spend all your time defending against attacks that aren't likely to happen, that have got to come at you in a pre-arranged sequence that's not likely to happen, you know, that guy who steps in, waits for you to block, and then you do a retaliation, so he steps back and he blocks that, it's just not likely to happen. So why do I think I'm right? I think I'm right for what I want my Kata Bunkai to be for. I think you're right for doing it in a very nice demonstration, which will be polished and lovely. Congratulations, it'll be good, but it's not what I want. So you carry on doing what you want to do, and when you come to the point where you decide that actually I want this to not be supporting this arm, but to actually be doing something, then we'll talk. But until that time, I haven't really got anything to say, because I'm not here to put the KUGB down. There's lots of very nice people in the KUGB, but that's not what I want.
Yeah, and Whip's just come up with a nice little quip on that. He goes, "Have you ever thought of being an MP?" And lovely answer. He said, "Lovely answer." See, the simple one for me answering something like that is that I don't think I'm right or wrong, and I don't think you're right or wrong. If you enjoy it and you're happy with it, carry on. But like John said, if you reach a point where you're thinking, I really want this to be something else, then go and see John, and he'll help you. You know. Couple more quick ones.
By the way, there's a teacher in the KUGB who explained to me what this might do in a really good way.
Right.
You know, but that won't be what they're being taught to do in these lines of people training. It was done quietly on the side. You take your money and you take your choice. You'll know the one there who does.
Yes, I think I know who you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you pay your money, you take your choice. That's it. If you're happy to do it that way, you carry on. Couple more things for you. I'll ask these both at the same time. Why do people do musical kata, and why do we have team kata?
Because they want to. So they do musical kata because they want to win a trophy with it. And, you know, if I was trying to find a good reason for doing musical kata, I'd say that maybe it helps you learn a little bit of rhythm if that's the way you want to do it. Why do other people do it? I don't know. Because they want to. Team kata looks nice, doesn't it? I mean, it does. You can't knock the people who put in those hours to perfect a performance like that. Congratulations to them. It's not what my kata's for. No. But if that's what they want to do, cool.
It's sometimes, see, I've got no problem with any of that. I've got no problem with musical kata. I've got no problem with team kata. I've got no problem with that extreme MA stuff. I've got no problem with any of it. As long as you're honest about it. You say, I'm doing musical kata because I like musical kata. I'm doing team kata because I like team kata. We're not fighting. We're doing some kata. And I'm doing it to music. Or I'm doing some extreme martial arts where I jump around a lot and show you how athletic I am. It's not fighting. Fine, no problem. Just don't call it a fight or self-defense. Then we start to argue. Right? But yeah, so anyway, we've gone over the hour. We've taken a lot of John's time. I hope everybody's enjoyed it. John, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you again.
Really lovely to see you.
And you, mate, and you. And thank you, everybody, for being here. A big shout out to John. Now, people, bunkai.co.uk. It's on his T-shirt. Make sure people can read it. There you go. Look at that. Look at that. If you want to understand what your kata can be used for properly and have a load of fun with a great guy, get hold of John and he'll help you with it. And thanks again, John. And thank you, everybody. Thank you for all the kind questions and the comments. And see you all soon.
Thank you, sir.
Well,
Take care.
You. And you. See you, John. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I've got to end it now.